Mine fills in every detail. Now open your eyes. That apple never existed, and yet your experience of it felt undeniably real. This simple exercise reveals something both unsettling and extraordinary. Your brain does not wait for reality to happen. It predicts it into existence. Every second of your life feels like a faithful recording of the outside world, but what you are actually living inside is a carefully crafted story. A story assembled from fragments of sensory signals, stitched together with memories, expectations, and hidden assumptions about what should be there. Your brain is not showing you the world as it is. It is showing you what it believes must be there in order to keep you alive. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, it feels as if the world simply arrives in your mind, fully formed, waiting to be noticed. Light pours in through your windows, familiar sounds drift through the room, and your sense of being, here, appears effortless and automatic. It feels as though perception is a passive act, as if your brain is merely a camera recording what is out there and playing it back to you. Yet beneath this smooth and convincing experience lies a very different process. Your brain is not a silent witness to reality. It is an active constructor, continuously assembling your experience from fragments of information and best guesses about what those fragments might mean. The signals that reach your senses are surprisingly sparse and ambiguous. Your eyes do not transmit images, your ears do not transmit sounds, and your skin does not transmit textures. What they deliver to the brain are electrical impulses that carry limited, incomplete data about changes in light, pressure, and vibration. On their own, these signals do not resemble faces, rooms, voices, or objects. They are more like hints, scattered clues arriving in real time. If your brain waited for these fragments to somehow form a picture on their own, your experience would be slow, blurry, and unreliable. Survival in such a world would be impossible. Instead, your brain does something far more powerful and far more creative. It actively interprets these fragments by comparing them to internal models built from past experiences, and then it generates a coherent story of what must be out there. This process unfolds constantly and automatically. When you look at a chair, your brain does not build the perception of a chair from scratch. It starts with a prediction that a chair is likely to be there, based on context, memory, and expectation. The sensory signals that arrive are then used mainly to adjust and refine that prediction. If the incoming data matches the prediction well enough, your brain accepts it and presents you with the experience of a solid, stable chair. What you consciously experience feels like direct perception, but it is, in fact, the brain's best current model of what is present, continuously updated and polished by incoming signals. Because this construction happens so quickly and so smoothly, it creates the illusion that you are directly in contact with reality as it truly is. You feel as though you are seeing the world itself, rather than a model of it. Yet this illusion becomes more transparent in moments when the brain's predictions dominate too strongly, or when sensory information is weak or misleading. Optical illusions, for example, reveal how easily your perception can be bent by context and expectation. Two lines of equal length can appear different simply because your brain interprets them within a particular visual scene. The physical input has not changed, but the constructed experience has, demonstrating that perception is not a simple reflection of the world, but a creative interpretation. Even in everyday life, your brain constantly fills in gaps without your awareness. Your eyes make rapid jumps called saccades several times each second, briefly cutting off visual input. Yet you never notice the resulting blanks. Your brain predicts what should be there and seamlessly stitches the scene together, giving you the sense of a continuous, stable visual field. You are not seeing every moment as it truly arrives. You are seeing what your brain expects to be there, updated just enough by real data to keep the illusion consistent. This constructive nature of perception also explains why two people can experience the same situation in profoundly different ways. Each brain brings its own history, emotional associations, and expectations into the act of perceiving. What feels threatening to one person may feel neutral to another. What seems beautiful to one may seem ordinary to someone else. The physical world may be shared, but the experienced world is deeply personal because it is built by an internal model that is unique to each individual. In this sense, everyone lives inside their own private version of reality, shaped by their past and tuned to their own needs. The reason your brain constructs reality rather than simply receiving it lies in the demands of survival. Your nervous system evolved not to show you the world as it truly is in some objective sense, but to keep you alive and functioning. It must make rapid decisions based on incomplete information. To do this efficiently, it relies on predictions. It assumes what is most likely to be happening and only corrects those assumptions when the evidence becomes too strong to ignore. This strategy is faster and more reliable than waiting for perfect information, and it allows you to move, react, and decide in real time. Your experience of reality is therefore shaped not by accuracy alone, but by usefulness. Consider how this plays out in moments of fear. A shadow in the dark can instantly feel like a threat before you have any clear evidence of what it actually is. Your brain predicts danger because, from an evolutionary perspective, it is safer to assume a potential threat than to wait for certainty. If you are wrong, you feel a brief jolt of fear. If you are right, you may save your life. Your experience in that moment is not a neutral reading of the environment, but a prediction-driven construction designed to prioritize survival over truth. This same mechanism extends into your sense of your own body and identity. You feel as though you inhabit a stable physical form with clear boundaries. Yet this experience is also constructed. Your brain integrates signals from vision, touch balance, and internal bodily sensations to create a model of your body as something that belongs to you. Experiments in which people can be made to feel ownership over a rubber hand or even an entire virtual body reveal how flexible and malleable this construction can be. The sense of "this is me" is not discovered in the world. It is assembled inside your nervous system as part of the same predictive process that constructs everything else you experience. When you recognize that reality is actively constructed rather than passively perceived, it changes the way you understand your place in the world. You are not standing outside of reality looking in. You are participating in its creation moment by moment. Your expectations, beliefs, emotional states, and memories are not just reactions to the world. They are ingredients that shape what the world feels like to you. The room you are sitting in, the people around you, even your own reflection in the mirror, are not experienced as raw facts. They are experienced as interpretations generated by a brain that is constantly guessing, correcting, and refining its internal model of what it believes is out there. This does not mean that nothing exists beyond your mind, nor does it imply that reality is purely imaginary. There is a world that pushes back, that constrains and corrects your predictions. You cannot simply will any version of reality into being, but it does mean that what you live inside of, what you emotionally respond to, what feels immediate and undeniable is not the world itself. It is your brain's carefully engineered best guess about what must be there, assembled in real time to guide your actions and protect your life. When most people imagine how perception works, they picture their brain as a kind of recording device that captures what is happening in the outside world and then presents it to consciousness. In this familiar picture, the eyes take photographs, the ears record sound, and the brain simply plays the footage back to the mind. This idea feels intuitive because our experience is so smooth and stable that it seems as though the world is directly entering us moment by moment. Yet the deeper truth is that your brain is not primarily a camera. It is a prediction engine, constantly running simulations about what it expects to encounter next and using sensory input mainly as a way to correct and refine those expectations. At every instant, your nervous system is generating hypotheses about the causes of the signals reaching your senses. These hypotheses are not formed slowly or consciously. They arise automatically, shaped by your memories, habits, emotional states, and biological priorities. Your brain is effectively asking itself, over and over again, what is most likely happening right now? The experiences you have are the answers to that question, expressed as sights, sounds, bodily feelings, and even emotions. Sensory information then flows in not as the primary source of your experience, but as a stream of error signals that indicate how well your predictions match what is actually happening. This means that perception works from the inside out rather than the outside in. Instead of building your experience upward from raw data, your brain starts with a model of what it believes the world is like and continuously updates that model to reduce surprise. The goal is not to discover the world in some objective sense, but to keep your internal model aligned closely enough with incoming signals that you can act effectively and safely. When your predictions are good, perception feels stable and effortless. When they are poor, you experience confusion, distortion, or surprise as your brain rapidly adjusts its internal story. A simple example can be found in how you recognize familiar faces. You do not analyze every feature from scratch each time you see someone you know. Your brain already has a strong model of what that person looks like. The moment you glimpse a face that roughly fits that model, your brain predicts their identity almost instantly. Minor variations in lighting, expression, or angle are then smoothed out by your expectations. This is why you can recognize people even in poor lighting or from unusual viewpoints. Your experience of seeing a familiar person is not the result of assembling details piece by piece. It is the result of your brain's prediction that this must be that person, corrected only slightly by incoming data. This predictive strategy extends far beyond vision. In speech perception, for instance, your brain uses context and expectation to fill in missing or unclear sounds. In a noisy environment, you can often understand a sentence, even when parts of it are drowned out. Your brain predicts what words are likely to come next and experiences those predictions as if you had actually heard them. The sensory input does not fully determine what you perceive. It merely nudges your brain's expectations in one direction or another. The reason this predictive architecture exists is rooted in efficiency and survival. The world changes rapidly, and the information reaching your senses is delayed, noisy, and incomplete. If your brain waited passively for perfect data, you would always be a step behind reality. By predicting what is about to happen, your brain can prepare your body to act before events fully unfold. This gives you a crucial advantage. When you catch a falling object, for example, your movements are guided not by a slow reaction to where the object is now, but by a prediction of where it will be next. Your experience of the object's motion is shaped by this forward-looking process, allowing your actions to feel smooth and timely. Emotion and mood are also governed by this predictive logic. Your brain continuously forecasts what your body should feel like in a given situation and adjusts your physiological state accordingly. If you walk into a dark alley, your brain predicts potential danger and prepares your body with heightened alertness, faster heartbeat, and focused attention. You experience this as fear. If you sit with someone you trust, your brain predicts safety and social connection, and your body settles into a calmer state. These emotional experiences are not simply reactions to the world. They are predictions about what your body should be doing to meet the demands of the moment. Even your sense of time is shaped by prediction. When you are engaged in an activity you enjoy, your brain predicts a steady flow of rewarding experiences, and time can seem to pass quickly. When you are bored or anxious, your brain's predictions about what is coming next may be less clear or less pleasant, and time can seem to drag. The feeling of time itself becomes another constructed aspect of your experience, molded by how your brain anticipates the future. The predictive nature of the brain also explains why learning changes how the world looks and feels to you. When you acquire a new skill, you are not just storing information, you are reshaping your brain's internal models. A musician begins to hear subtle differences in pitch and rhythm that once went unnoticed because their brain has learned to predict more refined patterns in sound. A radiologist learns to spot faint signs of disease in an image because their predictive model of what matters has become more precise. Their world becomes richer and more detailed, not because the sensory input has changed, but because their predictions have evolved. This view also sheds light on why perception can sometimes go wrong. Hallucinations, for instance, can occur when predictions become too strong and overwhelm incoming sensory evidence. The brain's internal model takes precedence over actual signals, and the person experiences things that are not physically present. In such cases, the brain is still doing what it always does, predicting what it expects to be there. The difference lies in how much weight it gives to its own expectations compared to real-world input. Understanding the brain as a prediction engine reveals that your experience of reality is always oriented toward the future. You are not merely living in the present moment as it arrives. You are living inside a constantly updated forecast of what is most likely happening and what is about to happen next. Your sensations, emotions, and even your sense of self are all expressions of this ongoing, predictive process designed not to reflect the world perfectly, but to keep you prepared, responsive, and alive. When you look around the room you are in, everything appears solid, immediate, and unquestionably real. The walls seem firmly in place. Objects appear to have definite shapes and distances, and your own body feels anchored within a stable physical space. This experience carries a deep sense of certainty, as if what you are perceiving must be a direct presentation of the external world itself. Yet the experience you are having is not a transparent window onto reality. It is the result of a continuous internal simulation, a carefully regulated hallucination that your brain produces in order to keep you oriented, functional, and alive. The word hallucination often carries the implication of error or illness, as though it refers only to experiences that are clearly detached from the physical world. In this context, however, it points to something far more fundamental. Your everyday perception is a form of hallucination in the sense that it is generated inside your brain. It is an internal experience, not a copy of the world itself. What makes it feel trustworthy is not that it is perfectly accurate, but that it is tightly constrained by sensory input. Your brain hallucinates the world in a controlled way, guided and corrected by signals from your eyes, ears, skin, and internal organs. These signals do not arrive as finished images or ready-made sounds. They are streams of electrical activity that indicate changes in light, vibration, pressure, and chemical balance. On their own, they do not carry meaning. They must be interpreted, organized, and transformed into the rich experiences of color, shape, texture, and tone that make up your conscious world. Your brain takes these signals and weaves them into a coherent model of what it believes is happening around you. This model is what you experience as reality. Because this process happens so quickly and so smoothly, it creates the illusion that you are directly perceiving the external world itself. You feel as though you are simply opening your eyes and seeing what is there. Yet every detail you experience has already passed through layers of interpretation and prediction. Your brain fills in missing information, smooths out noise, and resolves ambiguity long before anything reaches your awareness. What you consciously experience is the final product of this internal construction. The idea that perception is a controlled hallucination becomes especially clear in situations where sensory input is reduced or distorted. In near darkness, for example, your brain has very little visual information to work with. As a result, your predictions play a larger role in shaping what you see. Shadows can seem to take on meaningful forms, and faint sounds can feel charged with significance. Your brain is still generating a world for you to inhabit, but with fewer external constraints, that world becomes more heavily influenced by expectation and imagination. Dreaming offers an even more striking illustration. When you dream, your brain creates entire environments, characters, and events without any direct sensory input from the outside world. These experiences can feel vivid and immersive, even though they are almost entirely generated from within. While you are dreaming, your brain's internal simulation runs with minimal correction from real-world signals. When you are awake, that same simulation continues, but it is kept in check by ongoing sensory feedback. The difference is not that one is a hallucination, and the other is not. The difference lies in how tightly the hallucination is anchored to the physical world. This understanding also helps explain why perception can be so deeply influenced by beliefs and expectations. If your brain strongly expects to encounter something, it can shape your experience in ways that feel immediate and undeniable. Placebo effects demonstrate how belief alone can produce real changes in pain, mood, and even physical symptoms. Your brain predicts a certain outcome and adjusts your bodily and perceptual experience to match that prediction. The experience feels real because within your nervous system, it is real. Even your sense of your own body is part of this controlled hallucination. You experience your body as a unified, continuous entity with clear boundaries. Yet this sense of bodily self is constructed from a combination of visual, tactile, and internal signals that your brain integrates into a single model. Experiments in which people are made to feel ownership over artificial limbs or virtual bodies reveal how flexible this model can be. The feeling of "this is my body" can be redirected by altering the patterns of sensory feedback, showing that your bodily self is not a fixed fact, but a carefully maintained internal representation. The same is true for your sense of being located at a particular point in space. You feel as though you are situated behind your eyes, looking out into the world. This sense of perspective is not something you discover. It is something your brain constructs. It provides you with a stable viewpoint from which to interpret sensory information and guide your actions. This viewpoint can shift under certain conditions, as in out-of-body experiences, further demonstrating that even your most basic sense of presence is part of the brain's internal simulation. The concept of a controlled hallucination does not suggest that reality is meaningless or that nothing exists beyond your mind. The physical world continues to exert constraints on your experience. If you walk into a wall, your prediction that there is open space will be quickly corrected by pain and resistance. The world pushes back against your internal model, forcing your brain to update its simulation. This constant negotiation between prediction and correction keeps your hallucination aligned closely enough with the external world to remain useful and reliable. Understanding that your experience is a controlled hallucination invites a shift in how you relate to your own perceptions. You begin to see that what feels immediate and obvious is the outcome of an invisible creative process unfolding inside your nervous system. You realize that your experience of reality is not a simple reflection of what is out there, but an active construction shaped by your biology, your history, and your expectations. The world you live in is not merely perceived. It is continuously generated for you by a brain that is doing its best to keep you safe, oriented, and alive. Every experience you have is filtered through a quiet but powerful set of expectations that your brain carries into each moment. Long before you become aware of what you are seeing, hearing, or feeling, your nervous system has already formed an idea of what is likely to be there. These expectations are not vague hopes or conscious assumptions. They are deeply ingrained predictive models built from your personal history, your emotional memories, your cultural background, and your biological needs. They operate beneath awareness, shaping what you experience in ways that feel natural and obvious, even though they are the product of invisible internal calculations. When sensory information arrives, it does not stand on its own. It is immediately compared to what your brain already expects. If the incoming signals roughly match those expectations, your brain accepts its prediction and presents you with a stable experience of reality. If they differ too much, your brain adjusts either the prediction or the interpretation of the signals until a coherent story emerges. In this way, your experience is always a negotiation between what your brain believes should be happening and what the world seems to be providing. Memory plays a central role in this process. Your past experiences form the templates that your brain uses to interpret the present. When you walk into a familiar room, you do not need to carefully examine every object to know where you are. Your brain already carries a model of that space, built from countless previous encounters. This model guides your perception, allowing you to feel oriented and comfortable almost instantly. The sensory input you receive merely confirms what your brain already expects, and your experience of the room feels immediate and natural. These same mechanisms shape your emotional reactions. If you have had a painful experience with a particular situation or person, your brain stores not just the factual details but the emotional significance as well. Later, when you encounter similar cues, your brain predicts a similar outcome and prepares your body accordingly. Your heart may beat faster, your muscles may tense, and your attention may narrow. You experience this as anxiety, caution, or fear. The situation may not actually be dangerous in the present moment, but your brain's predictive model is acting in the interest of survival, prioritizing safety over accuracy. Cultural learning also becomes embedded in these predictive frameworks. The meanings you attach to gestures, facial expressions, and social situations are learned over time and incorporated into your brain's expectations. What feels polite, threatening, respectful, or offensive is not inherent in the sensory data itself. It is constructed through layers of learned interpretation. When you interact with others, your brain is constantly predicting their intentions and emotional states based on these internal models, shaping how you experience the social world. Your biological survival needs exert a constant influence on these predictions. Hunger, thirst, fatigue, and pain all bias your expectations and, in turn, your perceptions. When you are hungry, food-related cues become more salient. You notice smells more strongly, images of food seem more vivid, and your attention is drawn toward anything that might satisfy that need. The physical world has not changed, but your internal priorities have, and your experience shifts accordingly. Your brain highlights what matters most for maintaining your body's balance and well-being. Even your sense of meaning and significance is shaped by these internal models. Certain events stand out as important while others fade into the background, not because of their objective properties, but because of how they align with your expectations and concerns. A passing comment can feel deeply personal or entirely forgettable depending on your emotional state and personal history. Your brain assigns weight and relevance based on what it predicts will matter for your future actions and well-being. This interplay between expectation and perception also explains why misunderstandings are so common. Two people can witness the same event and walk away with very different interpretations. Each person's brain brings a different set of predictive models to the situation, shaped by different memories, values, and emotional associations. What one person perceives as a harmless joke may feel like a serious insult to another. The sensory input may be similar, but the constructed experiences diverge because the internal frameworks differ. The influence of expectation can even extend into physical sensation. Studies of pain show that belief can alter the intensity of what is felt. If you expect a stimulus to be painful, your experience of pain can increase. If you believe that you have received relief, pain can decrease even when no active treatment has been given. Your brain's predictions about what your body should be feeling actively shape your bodily experience, demonstrating that sensation itself is not purely a bottom-up signal from the body, but a top-down construction influenced by expectation. Over time, these predictive models become self-reinforcing. The experiences they generate tend to confirm the expectations that produced them. If you expect the world to be hostile, you are more likely to notice threats, interpret ambiguous situations as negative, and respond defensively. These responses can, in turn, lead to experiences that further reinforce your belief in a hostile world. Your internal model gradually shapes the reality you experience, not by changing the external world, but by guiding what you notice, how you interpret it, and how you respond to it. Understanding that perception is shaped by expectation memory, and survival needs invites a more reflective relationship with your own experience. It becomes possible to recognize that what feels immediately true is not always a direct mirror of what is happening. Your brain is doing what it evolved to do, constructing a version of reality that is most useful for keeping you alive and functioning. The world you live in is therefore not only something you encounter, it is something that is continually being assembled inside you, shaped by the quiet influence of your past, your beliefs, and your biological priorities. From the moment you first became aware of yourself, it felt as though there was a solid and continuous you, living somewhere behind your eyes, looking out at the world and making decisions. This sense of self feels so natural and persistent that it seems like a fundamental feature of existence, something that must be discovered rather than created. Yet this experience of being a stable, unified individual is not something that simply exists on its own. It is the result of an intricate model that your brain constructs to help you navigate the world. Your brain must constantly regulate your body, predict what will happen next, and coordinate your actions in an uncertain environment. To do this efficiently, it benefits from having a central reference point, a kind of organizing model that represents this organism as a single entity with needs, goals, and boundaries. This model is what you experience as yourself. It integrates information about your body, your emotions, your memories, and your social identity into a coherent story that feels like a continuous person moving through time. This sense of continuity is not given directly by your senses. At any given moment, your sensory inputs are fleeting and constantly changing. Your brain stitches these fleeting moments together into a narrative of me, creating the impression of a persistent identity that endures across time. Memories play a crucial role in this process. They provide a record of what has happened to you, allowing your brain to maintain a storyline that links your past, present, and anticipated future into a single personal narrative. Without this narrative construction, your experience would be a series of disconnected moments with no enduring center. Your emotional life also depends on this internal model. Feelings such as pride, guilt, fear, and hope only make sense in relation to a self that can be affected, evaluated, and imagined across time. When you feel regret, you are not just responding to a present situation. You are comparing what is happening now to a remembered version of yourself in the past and a predicted version of yourself in the future. Your brain's self model allows these temporal comparisons to exist, shaping your emotional landscape and guiding your decisions. Even your sense of agency, the feeling that you are the one causing your actions, is part of this construction. When you reach for a cup or speak a sentence, your brain predicts the sensory consequences of your movements. If the predicted outcomes match what actually happens, you experience the action as your own. This matching process strengthens the feeling that, I am doing this. When the match is disrupted, as in certain neurological conditions or carefully designed experiments, that sense of agency can weaken or even disappear, revealing that it too is a product of predictive modeling rather than a simple given. Your social identity is also woven into this self-model. From an early age, your brain learns how others respond to you, what roles you occupy, and what is expected of you. These patterns become part of your internal representation of who you are. You come to see yourself as a certain kind of person with particular traits, strengths and limitations. These beliefs are not merely descriptions. They actively shape how you perceive opportunities, interpret feedback, and choose your actions. The self-model becomes both a lens through which you experience the world and a guide that directs your behavior. This constructed self is remarkably flexible. Under certain conditions, it can change dramatically. In moments of deep absorption, such as during intense concentration, creative flow, or meditation, the sense of a separate self can fade into the background. You may feel less like a distinct observer and more like part of the activity itself. In other situations, such as during anxiety or self-consciousness, the sense of self can become amplified, with heightened awareness of your own thoughts, feelings, and perceived flaws. These fluctuations reveal that the self is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic pattern of experience that can expand, contract, and transform. Experiments that manipulate sensory feedback can further demonstrate the constructed nature of the self. When people are given altered visual or tactile signals, they can begin to feel as though another body, or even an external object, belongs to them. The boundaries of the self can shift, sometimes rapidly, showing that the feeling of ownership and identity depends on how your brain integrates sensory information into its internal model. The you that feels so obvious and stable is, in fact, a continually updated simulation. Understanding the self as a model rather than a fixed entity has profound implications for how you relate to your own thoughts and emotions. It suggests that your inner narrative is not an unchanging truth about who you are, but a story your brain is telling in order to maintain coherence and guide action. This story can be revised. Beliefs about your limitations, your identity, and your place in the world are not immutable facts. They are elements of a predictive model that can evolve as your experiences and interpretations change. This does not mean that your experiences are meaningless or that your personal history does not matter. On the contrary, your self-model is deeply shaped by what you have lived through, and it plays a crucial role in organizing your life. But it does mean that the feeling of being a single, solid me is not something you simply uncover. It is something your brain actively generates to help you move through the world with continuity, purpose, and direction.